It was just another routine checkup, the kind of appointment expectant mothers go to with both nervousness and hope. Amanda Foster, now in her third trimester, sat quietly in the dim room of the ultrasound clinic, her young daughter Bailey by her side. The monitor flickered to life, showing the familiar fuzzy image of her unborn baby boy. But then something unusual happened. As the technician gently moved the probe across Amanda's belly, the screen captured something no one expected. A large, soft-looking hand too big to belong to the baby appeared to be resting on the child's tiny head. It was as if something or someone was reaching out in protection. Bailey was the first to speak. "Mom, look at that hand." Amanda stared at the screen, her heart racing. Tears filled her eyes, because for weeks she had been praying the same words, over and over again. "Lord, please keep your hand on my baby." Now, that very image seemed to appear right before her eyes. To understand the power of that moment, you need to know Amanda's story. Her journey to motherhood was never easy. In fact, it began with heartbreak. At just 17 years old, Amanda found out she was pregnant with her first child, a boy. Like any young mother, she was scared, but also excited. Until the 18-week ultrasound brought devastating news. The baby was diagnosed with Potter's syndrome, a rare condition where the kidneys don't develop properly or at all. Without kidneys, the amniotic fluid disappears, and the baby's lungs can't grow. It also affects how the baby forms in the womb, causing flattened features, bent limbs, and an almost certain outcome: death at or before birth. Amanda was crushed. "I remember thinking," she would later say, "if God is going to take my baby, maybe he should take me too." But God didn't take her. Instead, he left her to grieve, alone, confused, and full of sorrow. That sorrow quickly turned into bitterness. Amanda didn't stop believing in God, but she wanted nothing to do with him. She was angry. Life didn't stop. Eventually, Amanda would go on to have 2 beautiful daughters. Healthy, bright, full of joy. But even as she smiled on the outside, Amanda carried something deep within, a storm of pain and unanswered questions. Why did her first son have to die? Why did God allow her to go through such suffering? She described those years as chaotic. Her heart was torn between loving her children and quietly resenting the God she once cried out to. Faith felt distant. Peace seemed impossible. And then, one day, everything changed. It was September 2021. Amanda had reached the end of herself. Tired, spiritually dry, emotionally broken. She didn't have any more strength to carry the weight of her pain. And so, she did the only thing left to do. She surrendered. With tears in her eyes, Amanda knelt and gave her life back to Jesus. Not just her heart, but her fears, her doubts, her past everything. For the first time in years, she felt something return: hope. Only weeks later, something else returned too. She was pregnant again, and this time, it was another boy. Early in this new pregnancy, doctors noticed something concerning. The baby's heart wasn't forming quite right. The wall that separates the chambers of the heart, especially near the aorta, seemed off. If left as it was, it could be dangerous, life-threatening even. Amanda's mind raced back to her first child. The fear crept in like a shadow. But this time, she fought that fear with something stronger: faith. Every night, she prayed the same words. Simple, childlike, sincere. "Lord, please keep your hand on my baby." She repeated it before every appointment, every ultrasound, every moment of doubt, and each time, she felt a peace settle over her. Not the absence of worry, but the presence of something greater. It was a chilly morning when Amanda arrived for her 32-week scan. Her daughter Bailey came along, eager to see her baby brother on the monitor. They entered the quiet ultrasound room, just like they had so many times before. Amanda lay back. The lights dimmed. The hum of the machine began. Everything looked normal until suddenly, something on the screen made everyone pause. A hand. Not the baby's little fingers balled into a fist or stretching toward the womb. No, this hand looked large, too large. It seemed to gently rest on the baby's head, like a parent cradling a child. Bailey pointed. Amanda blinked. The moment was overwhelming. Could it really be? Could her prayer, "Lord, keep your hand on my baby," have been answered in the most literal way? The technician didn't say much, but Amanda felt it deep inside. This was no coincidence. This was a sign. Days later, Amanda and her husband visited a specialist to follow up on the heart issue. They braced themselves, but this time there was no diagnosis, no concern. The heart defect was gone, completely. The doctor confirmed it. The condition that once threatened her son's life had simply disappeared. Amanda's tears flowed again, but this time with joy. Gratitude flooded her heart. She remembered every night of pleading prayer, every tear-soaked moment on her knees. And now, her son was healthy. Amanda posted the ultrasound photo on Facebook, sharing her story with family and friends. But soon, the story spread far beyond her small circle. People began sharing the image online, calling it a miracle, a blessing, even divine proof. But not everyone saw it that way. Some suggested it was just the baby's hand, distorted by the angle of the scan. Others said it was an illusion, a trick of the machine, just another strange ultrasound image. Amanda wasn't upset. She understood the doubts, but for her and her husband Kyle, it didn't matter what others believed. They knew what they had prayed. They knew what they saw, and they knew how they felt in that moment, peaceful, protected, surrounded by something bigger than themselves. Whether the world called it coincidence or miracle, Amanda simply smiled and said, "God is good." Amanda's story is more than just a photo. It's about grief and healing, anger and surrender, loss and restoration. After losing her first child, she had every reason to close her heart, to walk away from faith forever. But she didn't. She chose to return. Not because life got easier, but because she had learned something deeper. That even when we don't understand what God is doing, we can still trust that He is doing something. Amanda found comfort, not in explanations, but in God's presence. There's a story in the Bible about a man named Job. He was faithful, honest, devoted, and yet he suffered terribly, losing his children, his health, and his home. Through all of it, Job never fully understood why it happened, but he held on, not to answers, but to faith. Amanda's journey is a modern reflection of that ancient truth. She didn't get a warning. She didn't get a reason, but she got something better, a second chance, a healed heart, a healthy baby, and an image that brought peace to her soul. She doesn't claim to have all the answers. She doesn't try to convince anyone. She just knows what happened to her, and that's enough. Now, just weeks before her due date, Amanda Foster walks through each day with quiet peace. The fear that once haunted her heart has been replaced by something softer, something stronger. Hope. Every night, as she folds baby clothes and prepares the nursery, Amanda thinks back to where she started. The dark hospital room as a teenager. The devastating silence of a diagnosis. The years of running from faith. And now, this moment. A crib waiting, a name chosen, a child protected. She doesn't know what tomorrow will bring. But for the first time in a long time, she's not afraid of the unknown. Because she's already seen what prayer can do. She's already seen what it means to be held, even when you feel alone. Amanda doesn't tell her story to go viral. She doesn't share her ultrasound because she wants attention. She shares it because she knows what it's like to cry into your pillow at night, asking God why. She knows what it's like to walk through grief with no clear path forward. And she knows what it's like to doubt not God's power, but His goodness. To every mother sitting quietly in a clinic, her fingers nervously intertwined, her heart pounding louder than the monitor beside her, this story is for you. To every woman who has waited in silence, holding her breath as the doctor examined the screen, whispering into her own soul, "Please, let my baby be okay, you are seen." And to every heart, whether in a hospital room, a living room, or curled in the shadows of grief, that has ever felt forgotten by God, you are not forgotten. Amanda Foster's journey carries a message that reaches far beyond one ultrasound or one miracle. It's a message carved out of sorrow, stitched together by prayer, and glowing with quiet hope. And it is this: you are not alone. Not in the silence, not in the pain, not in the waiting rooms or the what-ifs. God sees you, even when the world is quiet, even when the news is bad, even when your strength feels like it's running out. And sometimes, though not always in ways we expect, He answers. Not with loud declarations or flashing signs, but with something small. Something so gentle it could be missed. A flicker of light, a line on a screen, a shape that looks like a hand resting softly on the head of a child still waiting to be born. The truth is, not every miracle becomes a headline. Not every act of grace is meant to be public. Many of God's most powerful works happen in private moments, in hospital rooms, in whispered prayers, in places where the world isn't watching. But they happen, and they matter. Amanda's ultrasound went viral. Some called it miraculous. Others called it science. To some, it was an illusion of light and timing. To others, it was a divine encounter frozen in digital pixels. The debates swirled online, believers and skeptics, side by side. But for Amanda and her husband Kyle, the image meant something else entirely. They saw love. A love that didn't promise the road would be smooth, but promised they wouldn't have to walk it alone. A love that didn't erase the pain of the past, but gently wrapped its arms around it and carried it forward. A love that shows up sometimes in fire, sometimes in silence, and sometimes in a still image on a flickering monitor, shaped like a hand. As Amanda counts the days until her son's arrival, she continues to pray. But her prayers have changed. They're no longer driven by fear or desperation. They rise instead from a heart filled with gratitude. Her words are simple but deep. Thank you for fixing what I couldn't fix, for carrying what I was too weak to hold, for being there even when I didn't know you were. And somewhere beyond the limits of our sight, beyond what machines can detect or the mind can explain, perhaps that same hand reaches out again. Invisible to the eye, quiet to the ear, but undeniably real. Covering, guiding, blessing. Because the most powerful signs of God's presence are not always wrapped in thunder or announced with trumpets. Sometimes they appear in the gentlest ways, in the curve of a baby's cheek, in the steady beat of a newly healed heart, and in the soft imprint of a hand that was never meant to leave. And for Amanda, that hand was never imaginary. It was love, made visible. And to her, that was miracle enough.